Today, we're going to compress a 4-year marketing degree into one video. Marketing is evolving at lightning speed, but there are key principles that will anchor you through all the changes, especially with all the AI stuff that's going on. We're going to dive into the fundamentals that every marketer needs to know to stay ahead. First, let's start by talking about what marketing really is. At the end of the day, marketing's job is to drive people to the point of sale. So let's talk about some examples. When you think about buying anything from Hermes, Hermes is a very exclusive brand and you can't just go buy their Birkin bags. You actually have to be a customer up to a certain point. You have to spend a certain amount in order to unlock that. That is a form of exclusive marketing. Now, another form of marketing might be Apple. When you think about Apple, you think about premium design, you think about premium products. They might not necessarily be the first to market when it comes down to brand new technology, but usually they refine really well. They have a well-baked product and they have a well-baked ecosystem and everything just works. Now, on the flip side of all this, when you think about McDonald's is known for being very predictable. You know it's going to be cheap, you know it's going to be fast, you know what you're going to get, and that's what McDonald's is known for. So everyone has their own form of marketing and what they're known for. That's what brings people to the point of sale. What they're known for is what attracts people, attracts customers to that point of sale. Now, we just talked about how it's important for you to know where your people are hanging out because that's part of marketing 101. So before you do any marketing, you've got to know how you're going to tap into their psychology and really understand what they need and what problems that they're trying to solve. Part of that has to do with jobs to be done, or JTBD. You now have the power of AI. You have synthetic intelligence in your pocket, on your laptop, on your computer, where you can do deep research. And so one example of this is leveraging ChatGPT's deep research function, where it might spend a couple minutes thinking, but it will spit out what used to cost you maybe thousands of dollars, and maybe it'll give you 10 to 12 pages of a report just for you to understand where your customers are hanging out. This power was not available to people before. It's now available to you, and you can now condense the time to value to getting these things done, to getting this research done, so you can actually start to execute on these marketing campaigns. I'm going to give you some counter examples here. There are some failures of stories of brands that ultimately didn't align with marketing to their customers. When you think about Blockbuster's failure to adapt to where their customers were sitting in the 2000s, Netflix was up and coming. Blockbuster didn't pay attention to understanding what the future, how people wanted to consume movies would be, which would be streaming. Netflix, even though they did DVD rentals, they reinvested their profits back into building technologies where they could adapt into the future because they understood what their customers wanted to do and they understood where the puck was going to. Now, on the flip side of this, Bud Light launched a pretty controversial campaign, and it was their campaign that involved a transgender person, and they lost their position as a top-selling beer in the US. Eventually, they got overtaken by Modelo. Sometimes brands can take shots like this, but again, you have to understand who your customers are, what makes them tick, and the stories behind these customers too, because a brand tells a story at the end of the day. What you don't want to do is alienate your primary customer base. And so Blockbuster alienated their customer base by not understanding where their customers were going. Bud Light did that by not trying to continually understand who their main customer base was, and that's how they lost their position. All right, so I would be remiss not to mention that one of the biggest lessons you'll learn in marketing is that it doesn't matter how good your marketing is if you have a bad offer. You want to have an offer so good that people would feel stupid not taking it. Let's say, for example, I hosted a private marketing summit a couple weeks ago. What if I gave away all of the clips, all the videos from that summit that people paid $3,500 to go to? What if I gave all of those away for free in exchange for your email? That's a much better offer than me saying, here are a couple of podcasts or here are a couple of marketing trends that I'm seeing. So the better your offer is, the more it's going to stand out. And the better your offer is, that's going to decrease your cost of acquiring a customer or your cost per acquisition in terms of maybe collecting an email. So your offer really will help you drive your marketing forward, and the more no-brainer you can make it, the better. Now, the other thing to keep in mind too is you have to understand that there is a value ladder. So maybe you're giving an ebook away at the very bottom of the ladder. So here's the bottom rung over here. Another level above that might be you're giving away a free calculator because that takes a little more time to do. Or you might go one level above that and give away free software. And maybe you go one level above that and give them a free ticket to a private event that costs people $10,000 to go to. So the value ladder can continue to go up. It's up to your creativity at the end end of the day, it is up to how much you're willing to sacrifice to give away a no-brainer offer. And you have to understand too that there is a value ladder to all this stuff. But the point I have for you is that when marketing gets harder, that gives you the opportunity to shine because most people aren't willing to put in the work. Now, you also have to make sure that when you craft your offer, you're thinking about positioning. You don't want to target your total addressable market. Rather, you want to target your total relevant market. Now, an example of this would be Liquid Death. So Liquid Death, their positioning is to murder thirst. If you want to understand positioning better, I have a friend, her name is April Dunford, and she did an incredible job writing a book about positioning. I remember that book is called Obviously Awesome. She worked at a company where they didn't understand the positioning of this SaaS company that was dying. And when she talked to a bunch of customers, maybe out of every 100, maybe 2 or 3 would talk about this one use case that they couldn't do without the product for. And so she learned to eventually ignore the 97, 98% of other people and learn to double down and triple down on what these people that absolutely needed this product for. And she refocused the positioning on that. And then from there, I believe that company eventually grew to become a $5 billion company. All right, so now that we talked about positioning, you also have to understand in marketing, your creative matters a lot. The story that you tell with your creative will create affinity for your brand. There's a company called Dollar Shave Club. The CEO recorded an ad.
Are the blades any good? No. Our blades are great.
I still remember that ad to this day. Basically talked about how their razors are effing amazing. I just remember it was really funny. I remember it told a good story about the brand. And I remember it was really cheap as well. So about a minute or 2 minutes, the company showed that it had a lot of spunk. It showed that it was cool. It was funny. It also showed that these razors were cheap. They're more amazing than other razors. Most times you aren't going to care about a razor company unless they do something to pull at your heart, whether it's a compelling story or it's something that's really funny. So your creative matters a lot, especially in an AI driven world. The ad platforms now, when you're running ads on, let's say, Meta or Google, for example, they're going to take away more and more of the abilities to optimize these ads, which means that the creative that you put out there, that is going to be the X factor. So you're going to have to learn the art of creative storytelling. And what that means is, even when I'm creating a video like this, I have to have a really good hook. And ideally, I'm telling you a couple stories, I'm giving you a couple examples, and then maybe at the end, I give an offer, right? But if you can do that, if you can learn how to weave these together and learn how to tell better stories, you're going to be ahead of other people. And by the way, marketing doesn't stop at the first purchase. The strongest marketers are trying to get customers to come back again and again. So when you think about buying from an e-commerce shop, usually brands are going to know when you are running low on product, or Amazon's going to know when maybe you should reorder. Amazon has Amazon Fresh, they have Whole Foods. You want to be able to continue to market to people because marketing doesn't stop after the first purchase. You now have their purchase data. They are now a customer. You have to think about, how do you go about building personalized funnels for them? Maybe you are able to see, you can scan the internet to figure out what this person is, what they're interested in. Maybe you have other products that you could cross-sell, that you could upsell to them. That's how you're going to capture a greater lifetime value. You don't just stop on one purchase. Otherwise, you're going to end up hemorrhaging or losing a lot of cash at the end of the day. And so the best marketers in the world, they know that they have to continue to market and remarket, and they have to learn about personalization. Now, I've kind of touched upon AI just a little bit, and I want you to understand that yes, AI is powerful, but you can't skip the first principles. You need to understand human psychology before AI will really help. Once you have the marketing down, there are a lot of ways AI can enhance it. But again, if you don't understand the first principles, the building blocks, you aren't going to know the right questions to ask when you want AI to help you. So let's talk about some of those first principles. I know first principles can seem a little confusing, but again, they're just building blocks. And so when you think about technology now, you have automation, you have tools out there. So you could be using different email service platforms out there that can help you with automation and tools. And so it could be a tool out there like Beehive, or you can use an AI tool like Lindy.ai. There are enrichment tools out there where you can discover who's visiting your website and how you want to go about marketing to them. You're going to need to think about first-party data platforms too. So when someone hits your website, maybe you have some type of first-party pixel that can enrich these people too. Maybe you know down to their IP address, who they are exactly, what they're interested in, and then how you want to go about marketing them, where they're hanging out online. There's predictive bidding as well. So as AI is getting more and more stronger, you think about Meta, you think about Google, they are doing predictive bidding for you. No longer does a human need to think about manual bidding when it comes to managing their ads. And speaking of ads, there is generative creative as well. And so that can come down to generative audio, there's generative pictures, there's generative videos as well, but you can use all these things for your ad creative. All of this comes down to having to understand what the building blocks are to get to that level of using AI. My suggestion to you is, yes, understand the first principles, understand the building blocks of not just leading up up to AI, but also the building blocks on what I talked about earlier when it comes to just building this marketing degree or getting this marketing degree from this video, you have to understand these things, right? Also just understand that marketing is continuing to evolve, but the things that don't change over time are human psychology. Humans are always going to want things that are better, cheaper, faster, and they're going to want quality as well. If you can continue to pull at the strings of human psychology, you're going to win as a marketer, because that's just what marketing is. Here's the problem with most marketing agencies. They don't understand what is happening with the world of AI. With my agency, Single Grain, we think about agentic workflows. We think about creating agents for the future. When we think about SEO, we think about creating different products, such as internal linking products or content consolidation products. And on the other side of things, we think about building products such as Care. We just think about making marketing easier overall. If you want to stay at the cutting edge of marketing and at the same time leverage the power of AI, go to singlegrain.com and we'll see you on the other side. Now, to tie all of this together, if you want to be truly successful for the long term, you're going to have a clear goal or KPIs, and you're going to have to test relentlessly. And so when I say KPIs, I mean key performance indicators. You can also look at OKRs. These are objectives and key results. But what gets measured gets managed. If you're going to have a culture of measuring, of testing, you're going to have to experiment all the time. What I would recommend is, as you're getting your feet wet in the world of marketing, you are building a culture of experimentation within yourself. And whatever organization you go to or whatever organization that you build that culture in, where you are experimenting every single week and you guys are very on top of your numbers. And if numbers aren't going well, you're talking about it. You have a traffic light system, red, yellow, green. If things are yellow or red for maybe 2 weeks in a row, you guys have to talk about it. And whoever's on your team, if they're not being held accountable, or if they're not doing a good job and they're constantly having reds and yellows, that's where you have to have a conversation. And if that's yourself, you have to own up to it and you have to take responsibility. And so if you want to win for the long term, you have to understand that most marketing experiments aren't going to work. In fact, today, maybe it's 1 out of 12 that are going to work. So most are going to fail, and you have to get used to failing. And that's going to help you win for the long term. So now you have the right principles and the right tools. You're now set up to win with marketing. You've got the fundamentals. Now you have to just continue to test. You have to leverage technology, and you have to just never stop going. If you want to learn more about how to incorporate AI into your marketing stack, check out this video on how I use AI to become a top 1% marketer.